The fluorescent lights of Stark Industries' shipping department buzzed overhead as Isaac Lucas double-checked the manifest against the day's final shipment. His weathered clipboard bore the scars of 7 years' worth of careful inspections. Each mark testified to his methodical nature. The midnight shift was winding down, but Isaac maintained the same sharp focus he had 12 hours earlier. "Hey, boss. You want us to wait?" Marco called from the loading dock, keys jingling in his hand. The rest of the crew had already clocked out, their footsteps echoing across the concrete floor. Isaac shook his head and continued working steadily. "Head on home. I'll lock up once I verify these numbers. You're going to work yourself to death one of these days." Marco chuckled, his tone respectful. "The wife must be missing you," Isaac remarked, his expression shadowed but determined. "Some things are worth the extra effort. Get some rest, Marco." Once alone, Isaac moved through the rows of shelves with practiced efficiency. His calloused hands traced the edges of boxes as he counted each one carefully. Every step was purposeful, and every notation was precise. Isaac had built his reputation on attention to detail, rising from an entry-level loader to the youngest supervisor in department history. The main office door creaked open, cutting through the warehouse silence. Isaac looked up to see Sam Stark striding across the floor, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the concrete. Sam's presence at this hour was unusual enough to raise Isaac's guard. "Still here, Lucas. Dedication like yours is rare these days," Sam said with the casual arrogance of old money. "Just finishing up the Johnson and Mitchell shipments, sir," Isaac replied, maintaining steady eye contact as he continued his precise work. Sam nodded and ran a manicured hand along a sealed box. "Good man. I always admired how you started from nothing. Reminds me of myself, though I moved up more quickly." "We all find our own path, Mr. Stark," Isaac said in a professional tone that carried underlying steel. "Indeed we do." Sam checked his Rolex. "Give my best to that lovely wife of yours, Christy, isn't it?" Christy had made quite an impression at last month's company picnic. Something in Sam's tone tightened Isaac's jaw, but he merely nodded. "I'll do that, sir." After Sam left, Isaac completed his final checks with military precision. The numbers aligned perfectly, as they always did. He gathered his worn leather briefcase, a wedding gift from Christy's parents, and headed for the parking lot. His 10-year-old Sedan sat alone in the employee section, a stark contrast to Sam's gleaming Mercedes in the executive area. Isaac did not spare a second glance at the luxury car. He had learned early that envy was a waste of energy better spent on progress. The drive home took him through the wealthy district where executives lived, with houses growing more elaborate every year. His own apartment lay in the opposite direction, in a neighborhood that hadn't seen renovation since he and Christy moved in as newlyweds. The lights were still on when he pulled into his assigned spot. Through a second-floor window, he saw Christy's silhouette pacing. She used to wait up for dinner and conversation, eager to hear about his day. Lately, her waiting had taken on a different tone. Isaac squared his shoulders and climbed the stairs. The door's hinges needed oil, another item on his endless to-do list. The apartment smelled of expensive perfume, a new addition to Christy's collection. Another late shift. Christy asked from the dining table, her designer blouse contrasting with modest furnishings. The receipt was likely hidden with her other recent splurges. "Big shipment," Isaac said as he set his briefcase down carefully. Sam Stark had come down to check on progress. "Oh, how exciting," Christy mocked sharply. Her tone was biting, as though expecting him to bow properly. Isaac studied his wife's face, still beautiful, but now harder, as if the community college student he once knew had changed. "I did my job," he replied simply. "Same as always." "Same as always, Lucas," Christy echoed, and then abruptly stood. "That's the problem, isn't it?" 7 years in that warehouse had yielded a 2-bedroom apartment and discount store clothes, while people like Sam Stark lived in mansions. "We have each other," Isaac said quietly. "That used to be enough," Christy laughed, though the warmth of her early laughter was gone. "We were kids then. Dreams don't pay bills, or the life I deserve." Her laughter faded as she stormed off to the bedroom. The door closed softly behind her, controlled anger in every step. Isaac moved to the kitchen, noticing an empty wine glass by the sink. He also saw an unfamiliar phone number flash briefly on her screen before she snatched it away. Later that night, lying in bed, Isaac listened to Christie's measured breathing. He thought about Sam Stark's smirk and how Christie's eyes lit up at his name. He recalled 7 years of early mornings and late nights, counting profits and watching other men's empires grow. His hand found a business course brochure hidden in his nightstand drawer. Tomorrow was another 12-hour shift, another day building someone else's dream. But tonight, in the quiet darkness, Isaac Lucas began to plan. Monday morning's management meeting dragged on as he reviewed shipping reports with department heads. His thoughts drifted to the changes at home over the past 3 months. The empty hangers in their closet had gradually filled with clothes bearing unfamiliar tags. A new perfume scent lingered in their bedroom. Its price tag was conveniently missing from Christie's dresser. "We should wrap this up," Barbara from accounting interrupted. "The quarterly budget review with Mr. Stark starts in 5 minutes. Isaac gathered his papers, noting Barbara's expression sour when the CEO was mentioned. Barbara had been with the company for 20 years, watching it transform from his father's respectable manufacturing business into a gleaming corporate machine. "He's spending a lot of time in the office," she noted. "Usually by now he'd be off on that yacht of his dedicated leadership," Isaac replied neutrally. Yet his mind flashed to Christie's recent interest in corporate gossip. Just last week, she had asked pointed questions about executive schedules and meeting locations, details she had never cared about before. The elevator ride upward was silent. Isaac used the time to study his reflection in the polished doors. His navy suit, though not designer, was well-tailored and professional. He had learned that appearance mattered in corporate politics. Moments later, Mr. Lucas and Flora Stevens, the company's CFO, entered the conference room. Flora, sharp-eyed and in her 60s, had survived decades of corporate battles through sheer competence. "Your department's numbers are impressive this quarter. Perhaps you could walk us through the efficiency improvements," Flora said. Before Isaac could respond, the door opened again. Sam Stark swept in, his presence immediately commanding attention, but it was the figure behind him that caught Isaac's eye. Christie, dressed in an outfit that likely cost more than his monthly salary. "Hope you don't mind if my guest sits in," Sam announced, not even asking. "Mrs. Lucas has shown quite an interest in our operations." The room's temperature seemed to drop. Flora's eyebrows rose fractionally as she assessed the situation. Barbara's knuckles turned white around her pen. "What a surprise," Isaac managed, his voice steady despite the inner turmoil. Christie did not meet his eyes as she took a seat at the far end of the table. The meeting proceeded like a carefully choreographed dance of numbers and projections. Isaac delivered his report methodically, aware of every glance exchanged between his wife and his boss. The way Sam leaned in to catch her whispered comments, the familiar touch on her arm when she laughed. "Excellent work, Lucas," Sam concluded with a razor-sharp smile. "Your attention to detail is remarkable. Nothing escapes your notice, does it?" His words hung like a challenge. "I found that details matter, Mr. Stark," Isaac replied, matching his tone. "They tell you everything if you're paying attention." Flora cleared her throat softly. "Speaking of details, shall we discuss the Anderson contract?" The meeting stretched another hour. Isaac watched as Christie navigated business topics she shouldn't have known about. She casually dropped client names and referenced confidential deals as if she were privy to private discussions. When the room finally emptied, Isaac lingered to organize his papers deliberately. Sam's hand rested possessively on the small of Christie's back as they exited, a gesture both possessive and taunting. "That was quite a show," Flora commented once they were alone. Her voice carried decades of weariness. "Indeed it was." Isaac's fingers pressed into the leather of his portfolio until his knuckles turned white. "You know, Sam wasn't always like this," Flora continued. "Success changes people. It usually reveals who they really are." She paused at the door. "Your quarterly report was exceptional, Mr. Lucas. You have a mind for strategy that's being wasted in shipping." Isaac nodded, accepting both the compliment and the underlying message. "Thank you, Mrs. Stevens. I've always believed in making the most of every opportunity." Later that afternoon, Isaac stood at his office window. He watched the parking lot as Christy emerged from the building, checking her surroundings before sliding into Sam's Mercedes. The car purred to life and carried them toward an exclusive part of town. High-rise apartments there offered discreet arrangements for wealthy men and their companions. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number with a single photo. The photo showed Christy entering one of those high-rises last week, with Sam's arm around her waist. Below, a note read, "Thought you should know. Not everyone admires our CEO's methods." Isaac saved the number without responding. He had suspected for weeks, and now that confirmation had arrived. The hurt was deep, a cold rage mingled with determination. He opened his computer and pulled up the business course registration page he'd been considering. The deadline for the next semester was fast approaching. As he filled out the application, his wedding ring caught the afternoon light. Isaac paused, then slowly removed it and placed it in his desk drawer beside the photo. The ring would serve as a reminder, not of lost love, but of lessons learned. Some men might crumble under such betrayal. Others might lash out immediately. But Isaac Lucas had spent 7 years learning patience, understanding systems, and recognizing opportunities. He typed the final details into his application and opened a new browser tab. It was time to research corporate law firms that specialized in hostile takeovers. The annual Stark Industries Gala transformed the Grand Plaza Hotel's ballroom into a monument to corporate success. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors, while a string quartet's music drifted through conversations about profit margins and market expansions. Isaac adjusted his newly purchased suit. It was a significant investment from his savings, but necessary for the evening. He arrived alone. Earlier that morning, divorce papers had arrived in a manila envelope marked confidential. The timing was no accident. Quite the spectacle, isn't it? Flora Stevens appeared beside him with a champagne flute in hand. "Though I preferred the old days when we celebrated real achievements, not just stock prices. The market rewards perception as much as performance," Isaac replied as he scanned the room. He had spent the past month studying investment reports and business journals, learning the language of power. "Indeed it does." Flora followed his gaze to where Sam Stark held court near the stage, with Christy radiant at his side in a red dress that cost more than their first car. "Though perception shifts in our industry." Before Isaac could reply, Clint Hooper, the company's lead counsel, joined their small circle. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were sharp behind designer frames. "Lucas," he nodded. "Interesting reading material crossed my desk this morning. Aggressive terms for a simple dissolution. I believe in being thorough," Clint said. Isaac took a measured sip of whiskey. "Every transaction should be properly documented," Isaac stated. Clint's lips twitched. "Indeed. Speaking of documentation, I've been reviewing irregularities in our recent acquisitions. Perhaps we could discuss them sometime." As the string quartet transitioned to a new piece, Sam Stark tapped his glass for attention. The crowd hushed in anticipation of the CEO's annual address. Isaac noticed several warehouse staff clustered near the back. Their rented suits marked them as outsiders in this glittering assembly. "Friends, colleagues, fellow architects of success," Sam began, his voice carrying the charm of inherited privilege. "Tonight we celebrate another record year. Our stock has never been higher. Our future is never brighter," he declared, and applause rippled through the crowd. He raised his hand for silence, his gold cufflinks catching the light. "But success isn't just about numbers. It's about people," about recognizing and rewarding excellence, about understanding your true worth in the market. Sam added as Christy stepped forward, her diamond bracelet flashing like a signal. Some of us have finally learned to recognize real success, she announced. A few nervous laughs scattered through the crowd. Flora's hand tightened around her glass as the warehouse workers shifted uncomfortably at the back. Isaac listened as Christy continued. I want to thank you for making this transition so smooth. I deserve luxury, not that modest life you offered. Do you know what Sam makes in a day? More than you in a year. The room grew silent as Isaac felt every eye studying his reaction. He kept his expression neutral while his mind cataloged each face, each reaction, and every potential ally or obstacle. My parents were right, Christy pressed on, encouraged by Sam's approving smirk. I should have never settled for someone from your background. I waited for you to become more than a glorified package counter. Careful, Flora murmured. But Isaac had already set his glass down and stepped forward. Thank you, Christy, he said, his voice quiet and authoritative. You've made everything very clear. Now, Lucas, Sam interjected, moving to center stage. No need for dramatics. You can keep your job. Consider it a parting gift, he said, wrapping an arm around Christy's waist. After all, we believe in rewarding loyalty. His tone was laced with mockery, and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Flora's flash of disgust and Clint's calculating look did not go unnoticed. Your generosity is noted, Mr. Stark, Isaac replied in a measured professional tone. I have learned that loyalty, like stock options, should be carefully invested. Then he turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, conversations resumed with a different tenor. He caught fragments of whispers about Stark's arrogance, about Christie's cruelty, and about the dignity of a man they had once overlooked. Lucas, Flora called after him. My office on Monday morning. We have matters to discuss. Count me in, Clint added, his legal mind already spinning possibilities. In the hotel lobby, Marco and several warehouse workers waited. Their loyalty was to the supervisor who treated them with respect. Boss, Marco began, but Isaac raised a hand. Monday will be business as usual, he stated, though I may need extra help with inventory reviews in the coming months. Detailed reviews are crucial. Their shared history was evident. In the shipping department, every action left a paper trail. Outside, city lights painted patterns across skyscrapers. Isaac loosened his tie and pulled out his phone. He had 3 missed calls from Gerardo Brandt, an investment banker known for orchestrating corporate takeovers. They had met at a business seminar last month, and Gerardo was interested in Stark Industries' vulnerabilities. Time to return that call, Isaac thought. In his card he found the envelope received that morning and opened it again, studying the divorce papers with new eyes. Christie's signature was there, alongside notarization by Sam's personal lawyers. They had thought these papers would break him, but instead they had freed him. He started the engine but did not go home. Instead, he drove toward the business district, where late-night consulting firms crafted corporate strategies. He had modest savings, a supervisor's salary, and 7 years of accumulated knowledge. More importantly, he now had a clear purpose. Success, he had learned, wasn't just about money or power. It was about patience, precision, and the perfect moment to strike. The divorce papers would hit the headlines tomorrow. In 3 months, society pages would announce Christie's engagement to Sam Stark. But by then, Isaac's plans would already be in motion. After all, the best revenge wasn't swift or emotional. It was methodical, strategic, and absolute. That evening, in a business administration class buzzing with tired professionals, Isaac sat in the front row. He absorbed every word about corporate finance and market dynamics. His notebook contained precise annotations, not only on the lecture but also on how each concept could apply to Stark Industries. Mr. Lucas, Professor Chin called out, your analysis of the Berkman case study was particularly insightful. Would you share your thoughts on their acquisition strategy? Isaac stood, still in his warehouse uniform. He had come straight from his shift, unwilling to waste time changing. Their fatal flaw was visibility, he said. They telegraphed every move, allowing the target company to fortify its position. A successful takeover requires discretion and precise timing. Several students looked at him with newfound interest. Among them was Gerardo Brandt, an investment banker whose designer suit did little to hide his predatory attention. After class, Gerardo approached Isaac's desk. Interesting perspective on Berkman. Most people focus on the numbers, not the strategy. Numbers without strategy are just statistics. Strategy without knowledge is just gambling. Isaac replied as he organized his notes. Speaking of knowledge, Gerardo said while handing over his business card, word is Stark Industries is planning aggressive expansions that could leave them exposed. Isaac pocketed the card without comment. Knowledge is valuable, but timing is everything. Back at Stark Industries, Isaac's days took on a new rhythm. His shipping department ran with military precision, yet his attention now extended far beyond inventory counts. One evening, he caught Flora, the CFO, leaving her office. I noticed some discrepancies in the Q3 shipping costs. Mind if I review the full financial reports? Isaac asked. Flora adjusted her glasses. Curious about more than just shipping these days, aren't you? Knowledge is an investment. Isaac quoted his professor. It always pays returns. Flora gestured him inside. I watched Sam Stark's father build this company. Real manufacturing. Real products. Sam's turned it into a shell game of market speculation. Isaac noticed bitterness in her voice. Must be frustrating seeing your decisions up close, she said, pulling out a thick binder of financial reports. Try infuriating. Did you know he charged his wedding to Christy as a business expense, called it a corporate rebranding event? Isaac's expression remained unchanged. That seems like the kind of detail that should be documented properly. Flora's smile was razor sharp, just like those late-night executive meetings at the Peninsula Hotel, all carefully logged in our expense reports. Over the following weeks, Isaac built his knowledge base methodically. During the day, he managed shipping operations with increasing efficiency. At night, he absorbed everything about corporate finance and business law. Clint Hooper, the company's legal counsel, became a regular contact. Their conversations always took place in quiet corners away from curious eyes. Interesting reading, Clint asked, nodding at a corporate law textbook on Isaac's desk. Just expanding my education, Isaac replied, though I'm particularly interested in shareholder rights and board responsibilities. Clint settled into a chair. You know, Sam's been making some questionable decisions lately. Mixing personal and corporate assets, bypassing board approval for certain expenditures, sounds risky, Isaac commented. Clint's eyes narrowed as he glanced at documents. Risk creates opportunity if you document it properly, he mused. Conversations with Flora and Clint became more frequent and detailed. Isaac absorbed everything: financial weaknesses, legal vulnerabilities, and procedural shortcuts that Sam Stark had taken in his arrogance. One evening, after most employees had left, Flora called Isaac to her office. You remind me of Sam 30 years ago, before money changed him, before he forgot what it meant to work, she said, sliding a file across her desk. Isaac opened the file and found detailed records of Sam's financial mismanagement. This is comprehensive. I've been keeping these records for years, Flora admitted. I was waiting for someone with the intelligence and motivation to use them properly. Through the office window, Isaac saw Sam's new Ferrari pull into the executive parking space. Christy emerged from the passenger side, draped in designer clothes that cost more than most employees' monthly salaries. Sometimes, Flora continued while watching his expression, the best revenge isn't just success. It's success achieved by exploiting every weakness your enemy's arrogance creates. Isaac closed the file carefully. I appreciate the insight, Flora, but I'm more interested in building something sustainable than in seeking revenge. Flora smiled. That's exactly why you're the right person for this. You understand that real power isn't about flash. It's about patience and precision. As Isaac left the office that night, he passed Sam and Christy in the lobby. They were arguing about a luxury purchase. "I deserve that vacation house," Christy demanded. "You promised me the lifestyle I was meant for," she said. "Darling, the Aspen property is already in escrow," Sam replied in a condescending tone. "We can't appear too aggressive with our spending right now. The board is watching." Isaac kept walking, his face neutral. Yet his mind was calculating, combining Flora's financial insights with Clint's legal knowledge and his growing understanding of corporate vulnerabilities. In his car, he pulled out Gerardo's business card. The time for learning was shifting to action. First, he needed to determine exactly how vulnerable Stark Industries' financial position was. Tomorrow, his first call would be to Gerardo. His second call would be to Professor Chin for advanced reading recommendations and hostile takeover strategies. A society photo of Sam and Christy at a charity gala flashed on the newspaper in his passenger seat, but Isaac ignored it. He focused on the business section, especially articles about market trends and corporate acquisitions. Success, he learned, wasn't about quick victories or emotional satisfaction. It was about building a foundation so solid that when you finally made your move, your target wouldn't even see it coming. Stark was over-leveraging the company dangerously. Gerardo Brandt pointed at financial projections spread across his office desk. The sleek Manhattan office contrasted with Isaac's modest workspace. "He's betting heavily on this Asian expansion," Gerardo explained. Using company assets as collateral, Isaac studied the numbers. His business courses helped him decode complex financial maneuvers. "How exposed are they?" he asked directly. Investment bankers rarely shared this intelligence. Gerardo smiled sharply. "Let's say I've had unpleasant dealings with Sam Stark before. He has a habit of burning bridges. Besides," he gestured at the market data, "there's profit in correction." "And your proposal?" Isaac asked. "We start small, shell companies, discrete stock purchases. I have investors who'd back a play against Stark, especially with knowledge of his vulnerabilities," Gerardo explained. Isaac's expression hardened. "I don't deal in insider trading." No, Gerardo backpedaled smoothly. "Everything is legal and documented. We just time our moves strategically. Your access to company performance data is a real asset. Data that suggests Stark Industries is overvalued." Over the next hour, they outlined a plan. Isaac would liquidate his modest, carefully saved assets. Gerardo would connect him with like-minded investors. "The apartment will be first," Isaac decided. "It holds too many memories. Sentiment is expensive in our business." Gerardo approved. "We'll need more capital. I have 7 years' worth of stock options from Stark's long-term employee program." "Perfect. We'll time the sale with market peaks." Back at Stark Industries, Isaac observed signs of trouble with new eyes. Executive meetings ran longer, and Sam's temper grew shorter. Christie's extravagant spending appeared more frequently in gossip magazines, each excess another crack in the foundation. The Shanghai deals had gone south, and Flora informed him during an evening meeting. "Sam is trying to cover it by shifting assets, but the board is growing nervous," she said. "How's morale in the executive suite?" Isaac asked, noting every detail in his ever-present notebook. "Tense," came the reply. Christie's redecorating demands weren't helping, minus $50,000 spent on office furniture last week alone. Every expense, every complaint, every whispered worry became ammunition in his growing arsenal. Late one evening, Isaac overheard Sam in the executive lounge. "The market doesn't matter," Sam declared on the phone. "We're too big to fail. Double the leverage if you have to. I want that expansion completed." Isaac smiled slightly, recalling his professor's words about hubris preceding a fall. The next day, he sold his apartment. The real estate market was hot, and the property had appreciated nicely. He moved into a small rental closer to the office, investing the difference in carefully selected stock positions. "Your first round of purchases is complete," Gerardo confirmed over a secure line. all through separate entities, untraceable back to you and the other investors. Isaac asked, very interested in your strategy, especially after those quarterly numbers leaked. Gerardo added, pausing. Leaked, of course, through proper channels. Isaac recalled the documentation Flora had quietly gathered, everything by the book. The market's response to Sam's expansion plans proved their strategy. Share prices rose on the announcement, fueled by Sam's reputation. But Isaac and his silent partners saw the underlying weakness. He's built a house of cards, Gerardo explained during a late-night strategy session. One strong wind. Timing is everything. Isaac reminded him. We wait for the perfect storm. That storm's first clouds appeared in the society pages. Photos of Sam and Christie's latest excesses, a yacht party, a private jet purchase, a mansion renovation. Each event was timed to raise board members' eyebrows. Did you see this? Flora dropped a financial magazine on Isaac's desk. The cover showed Sam and Christie at their new Aspen Lodge, champagne flowing as Stark Industries stock crawled along the ticker. Interesting contrast. Isaac noted, watching the numbers tell their own story. The board meeting next week should be enlightening. Flora hinted. Several board members had expressed concerns about leverage ratios. Isaac nodded, already composing his next message to Gerardo. Every piece was falling into place, every move bringing them closer to the endgame. Your latest stock purchase is ready, Gerardo texted that evening. The market's getting nervous about tech sector stability. Execute, Isaac replied, then turned back to his shipping reports, maintaining his cover as a diligent middle manager. Let Sam bask in his perceived invulnerability. Let Christie drain more resources with her demands. The best chess players knew that victory wasn't about one dramatic move. It was about positioning, patience, and planning 3 moves ahead. In his modest rental apartment, Isaac reviewed his holdings, now spread across dozens of carefully structured investment vehicles. On his wall hung a single-framed photo of the Stark Industries loading dock where he began. It stood not as a reminder of humiliation, but as a testament to understanding systems from the ground up. The society pages might track Sam and Christie's rise, but Isaac was writing a very different story. A story that would end with a very different kind of headline. The market's first tremors hit on a Tuesday morning. Asian markets plunged overnight, sending shockwaves through the tech sector. Isaac watched from his shipping department office as panic spread through Stark Industries' gleaming headquarters. Emergency board meeting in 30 minutes. Flora's text flashed on his phone. She had positioned herself in the executive conference room, ostensibly organizing quarterly reports. Isaac maintained his routine, methodically checking shipping manifests while chaos unfolded above. Through his office window, he observed executives rushing to the elevator, their composed facades cracking. The Shanghai facility's costs have doubled, Barbara whispered as she passed his desk. Sam's expansion plan is imploding. The stock ticker showed Stark Industries shares dropping steadily, not a sudden crash, but a persistent decline that made investors nervous. His phone buzzed again. Gerardo this time. Margin call starting. Our timing was perfect, the message read. In the employee break room, Isaac overheard worried conversations. Maintenance staff discussed canceled contracts, and HR whispered about hiring freezes. Every piece of news confirmed what he and his partners had anticipated. Mr. Lucas, shipping's updated cost projections are needed immediately, his assistant said. Isaac handed over a carefully prepared report that highlighted how much the Asian expansion had inflated transportation costs. Through strategically placed cameras, he watched Sam's reaction. Sam's face reddened as he flipped through pages of undeniable data. His golden touch was failing, and the evidence was mounting. He's pulling money from every department, Clint informed him during a coffee run. Board members are starting to ask where the reserve funds went, Clint noted. Interesting timing, Isaac said, referring to those archived expense reports. Then Christie's voice echoed. What do you mean? We have to cancel the new yacht. We already announced the launching party to everyone, Sam replied. Darling, please. It's temporary. Just until we weather this market adjustment, he added. Isaac sent a coded message. Ardo. Stage 2. Meanwhile, their shell companies began purchasing blocks of devalued stock, each transaction carefully timed and structured to avoid detection. Flora's next update arrived via secure email with detailed documentation of Sam's financial maneuvers. Sam was moving corporate funds to personal accounts and selling company assets at a loss for quick cash. Each decision dug the hole deeper, and the board called for an audit, as Clint mentioned in passing. Several major shareholders have expressed concerns about company leadership, Clint said. Those shareholders were part of Isaac's carefully assembled coalition, each owning just enough stock to demand answers without arousing suspicion. The perfect storm intensified when Flora accidentally included certain board members in an email thread documenting Sam's personal use of corporate resources. What's this about a private island? One board member demanded during an emergency session. Sam's explanation about corporate retreat facilities fell flat, especially when photos surfaced of his and Christie's luxurious weekend parties. Isaac maintained his distance, letting others ask the difficult questions. His shipping department continued running smoothly, a stark contrast to the chaos in executive leadership. The expansion was officially failing. Gerardo confirmed another 15% drop by week's end. Isaac decided it was time to accelerate their purchases while maintaining spread across different entities. The next day, Sam stormed through the office, his usually polished appearance showing cracks. His Italian suit was wrinkled, and his hair was disheveled. Christie followed, berating him about canceled credit cards and postponed renovations. "You promised me security," she shrieked. "Keep your voice down," Sam hissed, but the damage was done. Employees exchanged knowing looks. The Emperor's clothes were unraveling. Flora's final piece of evidence arrived that afternoon. It was complete documentation of how Sam had leveraged company pension funds for his expansion gamble, sparking an immediate board investigation. "They're calling for his resignation," Clint reported. The pension fund revelation was the last straw, Isaac noted as he reviewed his coalition's holdings. Through the market decline, they had accumulated a significant portion of Stark Industries stock. Every sale during the panic had strengthened their position. "Ready for the endgame?" Gerardo asked during a secure call. "Almost," Isaac replied, watching Sam's Ferrari screech out of the parking lot, chased by reporters. One more piece needed to fall. It arrived as an anonymous whistleblower report to the SEC detailing years of financial mismanagement and corporate fund abuse. The timing couldn't have been worse for Sam's control. "The board's meeting tomorrow will vote on new leadership," Flora informed Isaac. He nodded, allowing himself a small smile. Everything had aligned perfectly: the market decline, the failed expansion, and his stock position. Sam Stark had built his empire on appearances and leverage. Isaac had built his victory on patience and precision. Tomorrow would prove which foundation was stronger. That night, in his modest apartment, Isaac reviewed the documentation one final time. Every transaction was legal. Every move was documented. He had learned from Sam's mistakes. No shortcuts, no traces, no vulnerabilities. The storm had done its work. Tomorrow would begin the aftermath. The morning of the quarterly board meeting dawned clear and cold. Stark Industries' executive floor hummed with tension as board members filed into the conference room, their faces grave over the plummeting stock value. Sam Stark strode in last, with Christie at his side. Her designer dress and diamonds appeared garish against the somber mood. She claimed to be special projects director, though her main project was spending company money. "Let's get this over with," Sam announced as he took his seat at the head of the mahogany table. "I'm sure you've all seen the market reports. Just temporary fluctuations, nothing we can't handle." Board members exchanged skeptical glances. Their portfolios had taken significant hits, and rumors of pension fund mismanagement had reached alarming levels. Before proceedings began, Flora Stevens spoke up in a firm voice. "We have some additional shareholders joining us today." The double doors opened. Isaac Lucas entered, followed by Clint Hooper and a team of lawyers in pristine suits. The room fell silent. What is he doing here? Christie's face drained of color, her manicured hands gripping the armrests. Meeting the new majority shareholder, Flora announced, sliding a thick folder of ownership documents across the table. Sam jumped to his feet, his chair clattering backward. "This is impossible," he exclaimed. Isaac spoke calmly from the opposite end. "It has been quite possible for the past 6 months. Please, everyone, remain seated. We have much to discuss about the company's new direction." "You can't do this, Sam," he said. Sam sputtered. "I own controlling interests." "Not anymore," and Clint interrupted, distributing documents to the board. Through various investment vehicles and stock purchases during the recent market adjustment, Mr. Lucas and his partners had acquired 52% of outstanding shares. Board members leafed through the papers, shock turning to understanding. The stock purchases were legal and the documentation impeccable. "This is absurd," Christie interjected in a shrill voice. "He's just a shipping supervisor," Flora noted dryly. "Explain the pension fund discrepancies, Sam." Sam's face reddened. "Those funds were temporarily reallocated for strategic investment." "Misappropriated," Isaac corrected firmly. Along with other financial misdeeds, the lawyers began distributing more files. They showed unauthorized expenses, misused corporate assets, and questionable accounting practices, even charges for a Four Seasons penthouse suite. One board member read, "Charged as employee housing, $100,000 in office renovations." Another noted glaringly at Christie's designer furniture, while a third mentioned yacht maintenance. Sam slammed his fist on the table. "This is a hostile takeover. I'll fight it in court." "Please do," Isaac replied, nodding to his lawyers. "We have subpoenas prepared for both civil and criminal investigations. I'm sure the SEC will be very interested in your creative accounting." Board members whispered as their loyalty to Sam crumbled with the mounting evidence. "This is how you get your revenge," Christie sneered, though her voice trembled. "By destroying everything we built." Sam protested weakly. "No," Isaac answered, looking directly at her. "This is how I save a company from destruction. Your lifestyle was merely a symptom of the disease." The board chairman cleared his throat. "I move that we call an immediate vote on corporate leadership." "Seconded," came the prompt response. Sam stood, straightening his Italian suit. "You can't possibly." "Sit down, Mr. Stark," the chairman ordered. "The board will now hear Mr. Lucas's proposal for corporate restructuring." Isaac opened his folder, revealing detailed plans for reorganization, cost-cutting measures, and strategic redirection. "My first action as majority shareholder will be to appoint a new CEO and board of directors, one focused on sustainable growth rather than personal enrichment." The vote took less than 15 minutes. Sam and Christie watched in horrified silence as their empire crumbled with each raised hand. "This concludes your employment with Stark Industries," Clint announced, producing termination papers and noting that they must remain available for upcoming audits. "You'll regret this, Sam," he threatened. "But your connections vanish when the money stops flowing," Isaac corrected. Security waited outside, ready to escort the former CEO and his wife to clear out their offices. As they stood to leave, Isaac spoke one final time. "Oh, and Sam, consider this a parting gift, one that might be more valuable than the job you so generously let me keep." The boardroom doors closed behind them. Angry protests faded down the hallway. Isaac took his seat at the head of the table, ready to begin his first official meeting as the company's new controlling shareholder. "Let's discuss the future of what will soon be Lucas Global," he said. The transformation of Stark Industries began at dawn. Security teams changed locks while its specialists revoked executive access codes. By morning, Isaac Lucas occupied the CEO's office. The nameplate had already been changed. The leather chairs and pretentious artwork that marked Sam's era disappeared, replaced by functional furniture and performance charts. "Your 9 o'clock is here," His new assistant announced through the intercom. "Mrs. Stark, Ms. Stewart, send her in." Isaac reviewed performance metrics on his tablet without looking up as Christy stormed in. "You can't do this," she declared, slamming both hands on his desk. Her designer outfit couldn't hide her desperation. "These performance requirements are impossible," she argued. Isaac finally raised his eyes. "Every target is based on industry standards, the same standards other executives meet daily. I'm not just a common employee, Christy," she spat. "I'm the Special Projects Director," Isaac replied, "a position that, according to these reports, has generated zero measurable value. Care to explain how you spent your department's budget?" He turned his monitor to display a spreadsheet of her expenses, each line item highlighted in red: luxury car services, personal shopping trips classified as client meetings, and spot treatments logged as stress management workshops. "Those were legitimate business expenses," she protested. "Sam approved them." "Sam no longer has that authority," Isaac stated. "Your new performance contract requires weekly progress reports, documented client interactions, and measurable project outcomes." Christy's face contorted. "You're enjoying this, aren't you? Making us grovel." "This isn't about enjoyment," Isaac replied, pulling out another document. "It's about business. Your first report was due this morning." "I was busy dealing with this chaos," she said. "That's one missed deadline. 3 more and you'll be in breach of contract." The color drained from her face. "You're setting us up to fail." "No," Isaac said firmly. "I'm holding you to the same standards as everyone else, something you should have considered before accepting a position you weren't qualified for." The door opened again as Sam burst in. His usual polish was gone. "These department auditors are interfering with executive operations. Your executive authority is suspended pending review," Sam sputtered. "You're now regional sales director reporting to the VP of sales." "This is ridiculous," Sam protested. "I built this company into a liability." Isaac finished. "Your last 3 expansion decisions cost shareholders millions. Now you'll learn how real sales work. Starting with meeting actual clients instead of hosting yacht parties," Isaac said, pressing the intercom to send in the compliance team. 3 auditors entered with tablets and stern expressions. "We need to discuss irregularities in your expense reports," one auditor stated. "Mr. Stark, we have contracts," Christy tried to interject. "Legal agreements," Isaac interrupted, nodding. "Yes. Performance-based contracts that you're currently failing to fulfill. Every late report, every missed target, every long lunch is documented. Keep failing, and you'll be in breach," he warned. Sam stepped forward, attempting intimidation. "Take our expertise elsewhere. Section 8.4 of your new contracts." Isaac cut him off. "Non-compete clauses cover the entire industry. Breaking them carries substantial financial penalties. You're welcome to buy out the clauses, though given your current financial situation." Isaac let the implication hang. Their joint accounts were frozen pending investigation, credit cards canceled, assets under review. "You can't expect us to live like common workers," Christy protested. "I expect you to earn your salaries," Isaac replied, "starting with clearing up these accounting discrepancies. The auditors have questions about certain hotel charges. Interesting how many overlapped with your yoga classes." Sam's face darkened. "Are you threatening us?" he asked. "Not at all. I'm enforcing corporate policy, the same policy you created, including the morality clauses regarding workplace relationships." The auditors stepped forward, opening their files. "If you'll follow us, we have several hours of questions about these transactions." "You'll regret this," Christy hissed. Isaac replied, "Focus on your reports instead of threats." After the auditors left, Flora entered through a side door. "That went well. They'll try to fight back," she noted as she reviewed more reports. "Let them. Their attempts only give us more ammunition. The forensic accountants are finding new irregularities hourly. Make sure everything's documented," Isaac instructed. When they eventually breach contract, I want the termination to be ironclad." He stood looking out over the city through floor-to-ceiling windows, the same view Sam once enjoyed while running the company into the ground. Where Sam saw a playground for excess, Isaac saw potential for real growth. "The board approved your restructuring plan," Flora reported. Even the old guard cooperated after seeing the pension fund records. "People respect results and accountability," Isaac replied. On his desk, another stack of reports awaited review. Somewhere in the building, Sam and Christy faced their first real workday in years. Their complaints echoed through the corridors. But that was their problem. Isaac had a company to rebuild. He instructed his assistant, "Schedule the department head meeting. It's time everyone understood how things work under new management." In the shareholders' meeting room, anticipation buzzed. Television crews waited outside, alerted by rumors of major announcements at Lucas Global, formerly Stark Industries. The company's stock had stabilized under Isaac's leadership, but today would determine its future. "The SEC findings are ready," Clint murmured as he passed Isaac the final report. Isaac reviewed the documents as shareholders filed in. Each page revealed another layer of Sam's mismanagement: falsified profit reports, hidden losses, and personal expenses disguised as business investments. Sam and Christy entered last. Their appearance markedly changed from their glory days. Christy's hair had darkened against fading blonde, and Sam's custom suits were now replaced by department store offerings. 6 months of work had taken their toll. Before proceedings began, Isaac addressed the packed room. "I want to address today's announcement rumors. Yes, we've completed our internal audit. Yes, the SEC has been involved, and there will be significant changes in the company's structure," he continued, nodding to his legal team as they distributed thick folders to every attendee. Page 1 detailed the systematic abuse of corporate resources under previous management. Page 12 covered the pension fund misappropriation. Page 27 showed the full extent of unauthorized personal expenses. A gasp filled the room as shareholders absorbed the numbers. Sam shifted uncomfortably while Christy's face reddened. "This is a witch hunt," Sam declared, trying to rally support. "These findings are verified by 3 independent auditing firms, Isaac," Sam said, adding, "and by your own electronic paper trail. Amazing what people find when they actually check expense reports." Isaac clicked a remote. The projection screen displayed a chart of declining stock values under Sam's leadership, followed by recovery under new management. "But this isn't just about past mistakes. It's about accountability." Flora stepped forward, presenting another set of documents. "The board has approved legal action to recover misappropriated funds. The lawsuit will name both Samuel Stark and Christy Stewart Stark as defendants." "You can't prove anything," Christy protested, her voice wavering. Isaac clicked to the next slide. Security footage played, showing Sam and Christy entering hotel rooms during business hours. They used company credit cards at luxury stores and drank champagne on the corporate jet while claiming business travel. Every expense was documented and every misuse recorded. Their executive assistant even provided sworn statements about falsified reports. The shareholders muttered angrily, realizing their investments had suffered while the Starks lived lavishly on company funds. "This is harassment," Sam argued. "We'll fight." "With what resources?" Isaac asked quietly. "Your assets are frozen pending investigation. Your accounts are flagged, and even your personal credit cards are under review." Clint addressed the shareholders. "The total misappropriated exceeds $40 million. The company will seek full restitution, including punitive damages." The vote was unanimous. Shareholders, many of whom had once admired Sam and Christy, now glared as they raised their hands in support of legal action. "You've ruined us," Christy spat. "No," Isaac corrected. "You did that yourselves. I merely exposed it." Security approached as the meeting concluded, not to remove them, but to ensure they didn't leave before signing final documents. "Your resignation letters are prepared," Clint informed them. "Sign now or face criminal charges." Their signatures wavered. The mighty Starks were reduced to facing the consequences of their actions. Outside, reporters waited. Headlines would be brutal. Sam and Christie's designer clothes, likely their last, could not hide their defeat. No more mansion, yacht, or private jet, just mounting legal bills and a ruined reputation. The board ratified the company name change. Lucas Global is now official, Flora added with a slight smile. Workers replaced logos throughout the building. The Stark era ended not with a bang, but with quiet legal documents and flashing news cameras. Their new apartment lease was signed, a 2-bedroom, unfurnished unit in the same complex where they once mocked your lifestyle. Isaac turned back to his desk, focusing on the company's future instead of watching his predecessors fall. He kept the newspaper article about their downfall tucked away as a reminder. Success built on deception never lasts. Real power comes from creating value, not destroying it. The intercom buzzed. His next appointment awaited. Investors interested in legitimate expansion opportunities. It was time to build something lasting from the ruins of Stark's paper empire. After all, the best revenge isn't just success. It is success achieved by embodying integrity, diligence, and patience, he reflected. 10 years had transformed Manhattan's skyline. The Lucas Global Tower now dominated the business district, its sleek glass exterior reflecting the morning sun. Inside, Isaac Lucas reviewed acquisition reports with his usual precision. Flora announced that the European mergers were complete, her silver hair elegant against her tailored suit. Though officially retired as CFO, she remained a trusted advisor. "We've absorbed the last of Stark's former holdings," she said. Isaac nodded, studying market projections. Lucas Global had grown exponentially, absorbing competitors and expanding into new markets. The shipping department where he started was now just one division in a vast corporate empire. Speaking of Stark, Clint interjected as he entered with his morning briefcase. Now general counsel, he had helped engineer Lucas Global's meteoric rise. "You might find this interesting," he said, placing a local newspaper on Isaac's desk. The small article detailed Sam Stark's latest failed venture. After bankruptcy and legal settlements stripped his assets, Sam had attempted several business comebacks, each ending in failure. "He's working as a sales consultant for a mid-level firm in New Jersey," Clint reported. "Christie?" Isaac asked neutrally. Flora pulled up a social media page on her tablet. 3 divorces since Sam, each husband progressively less wealthy. She's selling real estate in Connecticut now, struggling to maintain a middle-class lifestyle. The photos showed Christie's attempts to retain her former glamour, with discount designer knockoffs replacing her couture wardrobe. Her once perfect hair now bore obvious signs of home coloring and desperation. They had tried approaching board members last month, but no one would take their calls. Isaac turned to the window, observing his reflection in the glass. Time had added distinguished gray to his temples, but his eyes remained sharp. His custom suits now came from the same tailors who once served Sam, but he wore success like a well-earned tool rather than a flashy costume. "Mr. Lucas," his assistant announced over the intercom, "the Yale Business School students are here for your guest lecture." "Send them up to the conference room," he replied. Teaching had become one of his unexpected pleasures, showing future business leaders the value of patience, strategy, and ethical leadership. Marco, now Global Logistics Director, passed the students in the hallway. "Remember that first night, when you stayed late counting inventory? Who could have guessed where it would lead?" He smiled. The conference room filled with eager MBA candidates. They had studied Lucas Global's transformation as a case study. From shipping to empire, the Lucas Global strategy was required reading at top universities. Flora handed Isaac another folder. "Your latest Charity Foundation report." The Lucas Foundation, focused on education and ethical business practices, has become a major force in corporate philanthropy, she said. Isaac scanned the document. The foundation had just funded another scholarship program for underprivileged business students. Success, he thought, tasted sweeter when shared purposefully. Meanwhile, across town in a cramped real estate office, Christy Stewart, now reverted to her maiden name, stared at another rejected loan application. Her desk displayed cheap motivational posters instead of luxury vacation photos. Her phone rarely rang except for collection agencies. "Miss Stewart," her manager said sternly, "you missed your sales quota again this quarter." The warning was clear. She had already been forced out of 3 other agencies. Her famous name, once an asset, now closed more doors than it opened. In New Jersey, Sam Stark sat in his cubicle, cold-calling potential clients. His sales script, written by managers half his age, felt like ashes in his mouth. The office coffee came in styrofoam cups instead of Italian espresso. His colleagues neither knew nor cared about his former glory. "Mr. Stark," his supervisor said across the cubicle farm, "you need to improve your numbers, or we'll discuss your position." He had heard those words at 6 different companies. His business contacts had evaporated along with his wealth. Former friends ignored his calls. Country clubs rejected his applications. Even his membership in society circles was revoked. Back at Lucas Global, Isaac prepared for his lecture. The students waited eagerly, notebooks open. They had read about the company's transformation, but hearing it from the architect himself was different. "Success," he began, "is not about quick victories or inherited privilege. It's about understanding systems, recognizing opportunities, and having the patience to build something sustainable." Flora and Clint exchanged knowing smiles. "You've studied our company's growth," Isaac continued, "but numbers only tell part of the story. Real success is measured by the value you create for your employees, your community, and your industry." He clicked to a slide showing Lucas Global's first shipping department. "Everyone expected me to gut this division when I took over. Instead, we invested in it, modernized it, and promoted from within. Today, it is one of our most profitable units, led by people who started on the loading dock." The students scribbled notes furiously. This was the kind of success they dreamed of, not just wealth, but lasting impact. In Connecticut, Christy watched Lucas Global's stock prices climb on her office computer. Each increase twisted something inside her. She had traded substance for flash and loyalty for luxury. Now she lived in a rented 1-bedroom apartment. Her designer dreams had been replaced by discount store realities. Her phone buzzed with yet another debt collector. The lifestyle she betrayed her marriage for left her with nothing. Sam's situation was not much better. His apartment wall held a single photo from his CEO days, mocking his fall. His Italian leather shoes were replaced by clearance items, and his executive lunches became solitary sandwiches. He tried writing a memoir, casting himself as a victim of corporate takeover, but publishers rejected it as too bitter and lacking insight. His attempts at consulting failed when background checks revealed his history. At day's end, Isaac left his office, nodding to the cleaning staff, each receiving full benefits and educational opportunities under his leadership. The security guard, working his way through college on a Lucas Global scholarship, smiled as he greeted Isaac. "The foundation event is confirmed for Saturday." "A children's hospital wing dedication," his assistant reminded him. Isaac smiled. The new medical facility would serve families regardless of their ability to pay. Real power, he had learned, lay not in displaying wealth, but in using it to create positive change. Gerardo Brandt, still handling some of Lucas Global's international investments, once remarked, "You didn't just beat them, you rendered them irrelevant." It was true. Sam and Christie's downfall was not only financial, it was existential. They had become cautionary tales, their names synonymous with arrogance and betrayal. In his car, Isaac read the morning newspaper. Below Lucas Global's latest stock surge, a small classified ad caught his eye. "Experienced executive seeking opportunities. Former CEO. Contact S. Stark." No one would call. Sam's reputation ensured that. City lights reflected off Lucas Tower as Isaac drove home, not to a mansion or penthouse, but to a comfortable Upper East Side brownstone. Success had not changed his fundamental nature, only given him more resources. Flora often said he had built something Sam never could, a legacy based on substance rather than appearance. Clint joked that the best revenge was living well while watching others live poorly. But Isaac knew the truth. The real victory was not in their downfall, but in improving on success built on integrity, success that always outlasts empires built on ego. That night, as Sam ate a microwave dinner in his efficiency apartment, and Christy scrolled through photos of her lost luxury, Isaac reviewed applications for the Lucas Foundation's next scholarship round. Each candidate represented a chance to nurture the kind of business leadership he believed in. 10 years had proven his philosophy: patience over impulse, substance over show, strategy over spite. He had built something lasting while they lost everything chasing appearances. The intercom buzzed. Tomorrow's schedule needed review. Another day of building, growing, and improving awaited him. After closing the scholarship files, Isaac reflected. True success wasn't just about winning. It was about winning so completely that your opponents became mere footnotes in your story. And in that, he had succeeded beyond measure. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.